Fnaf 2 is often considered to be one of the best games in the series, and I was one of those people a few years ago. However, as time went on to me, it became much, much worse, and I cannot overlook its plenty of problems. It's not like Persona Q, for example, where I can look past a lot of the problems because I like the game as a whole. This is a bad game. Before I talk about the bad parts, aka the rest of FNAF 2, I actually do want to go over what I like about this game. The minigames. This is actually the first game in the series to introduce minigames, which is really weird to me, because I always think it's the first game that introduced it, but no. And they're pretty good here. There's nothing to really say about them. I prefer the ones in FNAF 3, but overall, these are really good for a first try. The minigames also certainly got people like MatPat talking about the game, which gave it a lot more publicity, so that's nice. And it gave us the most peak thumbnail on all of YouTube. Another positive I want to talk about are the designs of the characters. I said in my original video, I don't think I was a fan of most of them, but I've come around for most of them. The Withered animatronics, with the exception of Withered Chica, look amazing. Withered Chica still looks good, but she doesn't look scary to me. I think just like the T-pose is what makes her look too goofy to be scary. But I think the best designed characters are Withered Bonnie, Mangle, and Toy Chica. But the rest of the designs are also really good. The toy animatronics still look cute, and there are elements to help them look a bit more frightening, such as Toy Bonnie's pupils getting smaller, Toy Chica losing her beak and both her eyes, and Toy Freddy's eyes becoming black and his mouth slowly opening the closer he gets to you. The Withers are also really cool. Like I said before, Withered Chica just is not scary to me in the slightest. And my final positives are some of the renders. The renders of Mangle on the roof of the hallway is genuinely really, really good. It reminds me a lot of what the first game would have done with its renders. How most of Mangle is kept hidden in the darkness, and there's something really weird about seeing Mangle's head look normal. I think it's because like every time we see her before, it's from a different angle, but other than that, the renders are still really good. But let's get into the negatives now. We should start with the least bad part of FNAF 2, that being the rest of the renders. Man, Mangle has my favorite, but she's also got my absolute least favorite. It doesn't even look like Scott tried with this one. How did Withered Bonnie and Withered Chica get into the vents? It's not too big, but it does kind of break the immersion, because you could make an argument that Bonnie could, since he has one hand and one arm, but Chica has no hands in this game. Now let's move on to the gameplay of FNAF 2. You have 3 ways to defend yourself compared to FNAF 1's singular defense method, but the problem is that's all there is to the gameplay. There are 0 changes and the gameplay is extremely shallow. That is what kills the game for me. Even though the nighttime is no longer 9 minutes but about 6 minutes, which is the ideal time, it's just not good. I don't mind the mask mechanic as a premise, however, it is absolutely awful here. The other 2 methods to defend yourself is one with a flashlight and the other with winding up the music box. The main reason why it's terrible is because everyone in FNAF 2 acts essentially the same, with only something minor to set them apart from each other, which makes it feel incredibly shallow. Because while, yes, the original FNAF game had you using the doors to defend yourself, there was a little bit more depth there, as only Bonnie and Chica acted similarly to each other. Meanwhile, Freddy and Foxy were 2 completely different characters. Freddy would hide in the darkness and you had to look for his eyes. Meanwhile, Foxy, after a few phases, would rush at you from Pirate's Cove. Even though you're doing it in the exact same way, there's a lot more depth to it, because everyone just isn't a carbon copy of each other. It's not exactly surprising why they pretty much feel like the exact same characters. It's because there are 11 total animatronics. Of the 11 animatronics, you use the mask on 9 of them. We talk about the flashlight, because the flashlight in FNAF 2 is a complete and utter joke. It's supposed to act as the power to a certain extent in the first game. However, the difference between the power and the flashlight in these two games is you can use the flashlight way too much, to the point where you actively have to try to run out of flashlight power. Hell, even whenever your battery runs out for a short while, guess what? You could still use the flashlight. Why is this even a thing? Another problem I have with FNAF 2 is the office. The office is just way too bright for what it's supposed to be. Imagine if the office in FNAF 1 was as bright as it was as the office in FNAF 2 is. It would take away a lot of the horror. Speaking of horror, this game fucking sucks at being scary. FNAF 2 really doesn't have much ambience compared to the copious amounts of ambience in the first game. Granted, I like the hallway ambience meme, but that really is just about it. Speaking of horror, let's talk about the jump scares. The jump scares are a mixed bag in my opinion, so I'll talk about them from 1 to 10 of how good they are to me. Let's start with Withered Freddy. So for Withered Freddy, I'm going to have to give Withered Freddy a 2 out of 10. The image of Withered Freddy towering over you is great, and I like the bricked eyes he has going on, but that's about it. The animation of him actually jump scaring you, it just looks bad. It's too goofy. It looks like he's trying to eat a hamburger as opposed to your skull. So now let's move on to Withered Bonnie. Just like Freddy, I like seeing Withered Bonnie towering over us, and the lack of a face helps him feel a lot more intimidating. I like how the jump scare is him grabbing you. It's pretty scary to be strangled by him, so I would give him a 6 out of 10. Unfortunately, his jump scare wasn't that scary. I do think it would help if the office was a lot darker. Next is Withered Chica. Withered Chica's jump scare is pretty goofy. Like I said before, her design is goofy, so it matches. I do actually like the suspense after the lights flicker off. I'm pretty sure the suspense for her is longer than any other. But I don't really understand what her jump scare is supposed to be. Like, she just kind of pops up in front of you. At least the FNAF 2 remake on Roblox had her using her feet to stab you in the eyes. But I would give it a 5 out of 10. It's down the road. I'm giving Withered Foxy, like, his jump scare is the most apathetic on. So I would say it's the third best, and I'll give him a 6 out of 10 as well. Withered Golden Freddy is a 0 out of 10. I don't think I was ever scared of him, even as an 8-year-old. I don't think anyone was scared of him. It was just way too goofy. Something I notice about Golden Freddy in the future, his jump scares always suck ass. It feels like Scott was trying to recreate what made his jump scare so good in the original FNAF 1, but that one worked so well because of the mystery of who Golden Freddy was. Also, most of his fakes was in the screen, compared to something like, say, Ultimate Custom Night, where it's just a shittily, PNG of his head, not even moving. I digress, and we're done with the Wizards. Now let's move on to the toys. So let's start with Toy Freddy. I'm going to give Toy Freddy a 4 out of 10. The build-up was pretty good, all things considered, but like the animation is what kills it for me, because I'm sorry, but he just looks like he's licking you. He should not remind me of my cat. Next, we have the puppet. The puppet's jump scare is getting a 7 out of 10. The second you hear the pop goes the weasel, you know that you're cooked. Although I'm tempted to drop the score later down to a 5 just because of a certain mode that we'll briefly touch upon. The next animatronic is Toy Bonnie. I like Toy Bonnie's jump scare. His leaping at you with an open mouth is pretty unnerving, and like I said, his contracting pupils is also pretty good. I would give it an 8 out of 10. Next we have Toy Chica, who's also an 8 out of 10. She's pretty much just Toy Bonnie, but honestly I don't think her lack of eyes and a beak is enough to really raise it for me. The final jump scare we'll be talking about is the Mangle. The Mangle is a 9 out of 10. I like how you can hear the audio from her radio from the vent before she actually gets in. It's something that actually makes her stand out compared to the others. I also like how Scott took advantage of Mangle's ability to climb up roofs and walls and had her clinging to the ceiling, even if it's impossible that for real life. I like how it's impossible to get her out of the office unless you get lucky and the night ends. The only problem I have with it is once again the office. Just imagine how much cooler the Mangle would look if the office was a lot darker and you can only see a bit of the fox head. Let's continue talking about the gameplay in more depth and why it fucking sucks. Let's talk about the puppet. The puppet has one of the best jump scares, but has one of the worst mechanics. In order to deal with the puppet, you just have to wind up a box, which doesn't sound too bad, but the problem is, winding up the music box is 90% of the gameplay for Fnaf 2. You see, the gameplay of Fnaf 2 has you using only one camera, that camera being the prize counter. There are two reasons why you can only use that camera. The first is the characters and how they work. The characters do not require the flashlight. Outside of Withered Foxy, no other character requires the flashlight. But the music box timer will gradually increase every single night, which means not only is there no reason to switch before, but actively switching to another camera will only make it worse for you. I want to go over a few methods to make the gameplay of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 a lot better. Let's start with Toy and Withered Freddy, as those two are the only characters in the Toy and Withered roster that actually enter through the hallway. Have it so both Toy and Withered Freddy, they will only enter your office when you put the mask on when they're at the end of the hallway. And if they don't put that on when they're at the end of the hallway, that will result in an automatic jump scare. Have Withered Foxy appear on a few of the cameras outside of just the parts and service, and then have to flash him with it there. Have it so you actually have to put strategy into this game by having, say, flashing the Withered animatronics to slow them down. Or have it so occasionally Mangle will run at you, because she's supposed to be like the replacement Foxy. So it would be really cool to see Mangle rush at your office through the vents, for example, or the hallway. Those are just a few examples, though. So let's move on to what most people know and hate this game for. It's 1120 mode. 1120 mode is pretty self-explanatory. The 11 main animatronics are set to their hardest possible difficulty. It's basically the 420 mode from the first game, but upped by 1,000,000. And there's a reason why this night is so infamous in the fandom. It's because of two main characters, the puppet and Toy Bonnie. If you're in the fandom, you hear a lot of people shit on Toy Bonnie. It's because of this night in particular. You see, because Bonnie has like an actual animation in there, depending on how long it takes him to leave, you're fucked. If he takes like longer than 5 seconds, you're cooked. Your game will end. And the puppet's box winds up faster now. So having the puppet's music box wind down faster and take longer to wind up while having everything be as chaotic as it is results in everyone hating this night. There's a reason why even now a lot of people think 1120 mode is worse than 5020 mode.